All right, so I think we are recording. Yeah, welcome everybody to the Hellenic Group podcast, a place where I interview a lot of people, experts and not, regarding our healthcare, regarding many things, maybe health tech, like the one we have today, and regarding other things like traditional healing methodologies and many things that can enable us to basically take back our healthcare, which is the point of this podcast, the point of this platform, the point of these conversations, that we should take the health back in our hands and be more responsible with our bodies and with our souls, and less like children, expecting other people in some government buildings to take care of us. So, having said all that, today's guest is a very, very interesting one because he's an inventor. And it's not very often that I bring an inventor on, so that's a great honor for me. So, welcome on, George.
It's great to be here. I've reviewed some of the things that you were doing. Looks like you have a lot of fun, and you really are helping people, which is near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, great. And I thank you for your kind words. I have the same dream like you, helping people, enable people, and make them more responsible. So let's start with who you are, basically. Who you are, why are you here, or basically what do you do? Give us a short bio of yourself.
Okay, I'd like to start out saying the world is in turmoil. There's health issues out there. Everyone's intimately aware with that. Fuel prices are going through the roof, and food shortages are on the horizon for lots of different reasons. And so, what if there was a technology that would help people seldom get sick, help the body heal 3 times faster, save 50% on fuel costs, and you can make your own fuel, and it helps plants grow up to 10 times faster? What if there was such a technology as that? That's what we'll introduce today. Okay, I'm George Wiseman. I grew up on a cattle ranch. Now, the cattle ranch was way back in what we call the boonies. We didn't even have radio. There was no electricity. There was no running water. There was nothing. We went to the lake and dipped out water to take back to the ranch house to drink. I won't even discuss the bathing and plumbing arrangements, except that there was a little house in the back that you had to go to, but it was in Canada, this particular ranch. And in the wintertime, that 100-foot dash out to the little house to do your business wasn't fun. So in any case, on the ranch, we had to fix equipment, and we couldn't just take it to town to be fixed. We had to learn how to do everything ourselves. And so I became very much what we call a jack of all trades, master of none. And so as a basis of my inventing capabilities, I have an extremely high intelligence for, like when they tested it, I was off the scale for mechanical aptitude. So it all just came together that I'd be an inventor. And I kind of had a choice when I was going to be leaving the ranch, and I could see that girls, they liked money. And I was thinking, how am I going to make money so I can attract a lady? And I thought maybe I'll be a prospector, but that was a lot of work. I might as well be on the ranch. And so I decided I'd be an inventor, and I happened to invent a couple of things that got me started back in 1984, and I've been a self-employed inventor ever since, which, interestingly enough, because of the way things happened, I developed the philosophy of helping people rather than patenting. What I mean is I write books and I teach people how to do what I do rather than patenting and trying to keep everything for myself. I try to teach as many people as possible to do the kind of things that I do. So more on that a little bit later. So I learned to fix pretty much anything, and I learned to fix it better because I'm lazy. And what that means is I didn't want to fix it more than once. So if something broke, I tried to figure out why it broke and then make it better so it wouldn't do that. It wouldn't break anymore. And that's kind of the way I designed. And then, of course, when I'm working as a mechanic for 35 years, I was also a certified automotive technician. When the vehicles would break, quite often I found out that engineers that design the cars don't really have any consideration for the mechanics that want to work on the cars. So in addition to designed obsolescence, which unfortunately that's a lot of things are designed so people have to buy cars again and again instead of them going for 1 million miles, which the technology does exist for them to do that. They could get over 1,000 miles to the gallon and go for 1,000,000 miles with virtually no maintenance. The technology exists to do that, but they don't design that.
Is that for real? I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but that's great to hear. Is that do you have any facts on that? Do you have any evidence about that?
Well, yeah, quite a lot. And on my website, you'll be able to purchase some books and stuff that'll tell about extreme mileage and how it's done, how I did it. So all the things that I say are either things I've researched myself and personally proven, and anything that's in my books is personally proven, from actual boots on the ground.
I believe you.
Yes. So I would
great.
do things for myself first, and then I would teach other people how to do it, essentially. And I did a lot of research, again, in the various libraries. For example, fuel savers, I found over 5,000 fuel saver patents in the United States Library. I'm a dual citizen, United States and Canada. And so when I was researching for my fuel savers, I found that a lot of the fuel savers that I had invented or discovered were already patented years, even decades, almost a century ago, some of them. And like the one that got double mileage in my RV, a 27-foot RV, a recreational vehicle. It has a V10 engine in it. It went from 7 to 14 miles to the gallon, and I don't have all my fuel savers on it yet. I just haven't had time. But that I call the Hyco 2A, and it was invented originally. I didn't know this. I reinvented it over 100 years ago by Benz, of what would be known as Mercedes-Benz car company. And that patent shows essentially exactly the same thing that I reinvented on how to make a carburation system.
Yeah, amazing, right? Isn't it amazing? I had a conversation yesterday, George, about Tesla devices. Do you know Tesla devices by any chance?
Yeah, Tesla. Not only is Tesla my mentor, he's dead, of course, but I study a lot of his work. But I happen to live near Niagara Falls now, and that was one of the very first large installations of the Tesla technology. Yes.
That's amazing. So you know all the stories, and from what I'm getting from you is that what you assume based on your evidence is that people in the higher ups probably are trying to, mask a few helpful and a few great inventions basically that can help humanity go faster and be healthier and be happier, to be honest. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. Absolutely. Like I say, the 5,000 patents that I discovered, none of them were on the market. Not even one. Not even one. 5,000 suppressed patents that I found in the public view. And that doesn't even include the thousands that are not allowed to be seen by the patent office because of government secrecy and things like that. And there's lots and lots and lots of stories. We could have a whole episode just on fuel savers, but I wanted to talk about the health aspect. So anyway, getting back to the girls, I decided I would become an inventor. I got the carburetor enhancer was the first thing I did. And then my business of being an inventor went on from that. But what I discovered, interesting, how my business philosophy developed, was the carburetor enhancer was $15 worth of parts. You could buy it at a regular hardware store, and you could hood up to hood down, about an hour, install it on a carburetor. Now, I know there aren't many carburetors out there. This is just the story of my beginning. And one of these Seen It on TV shows was interested in the fuel savers at that time, back in the early 80s. We did an interview and so they could kind of learn more about the product. And then they said, no, we don't want it because it's too easy and people could bypass us by going to the hardware store because they wanted control, right, of this to make money. So I thought about that for a little while and I thought, you know what, I'm installing dozens of these a day. I had people lined up my driveway. I had 6 weeks of pre-scheduled appointments for people to come and have their carburetors done. I realized there's no way that I could do all the carburetors in the world by myself. So I thought, if these people aren't willing, then what I'll do is I'll write a book. They call it Carburetor Enhancer Manual, is what it ended up being, and teach people how to do it and sell the book. And as far as I know, that has made at least 200,000 carburetor enhancer installations in the world. Yes. By not patenting, my technology actually got out there and I actually made money. Now, I didn't make a lot of money because, for example, I sold a book to this one guy who hired 3 mechanics, put them in a mechanic shop, and started installing carburetor enhancers in his local town. And in 2 years' time, he made enough money to retire. And the first thing he did after buying an RV was drive to my house and shake my hand and said, "You see that RV? I bought that and I've retired due to your book, of which I made a total profit of $4."
Spiritual gains,
Right.
At least.
Yes, that's right. All my life, it's been like that. I've helped a lot of different people, not only with their fuel mileage and their health, but also financially. There's been several people make 5, 6, and even 7-figure incomes based on selling the ideas that I developed, and they made a business out of it. So it's very good. My fuel savers were my early inventions. Oh, by the way, when I was doing the fuel savers, there was a lot of sabotage, suppression, government investigations. I had 7 government investigations of my business. And I had several different kinds of fuel savers at that time. Even though there was not one single customer complaint, none. The powers that be would descend on my business, look for all the records, look for all the financial things, look to see if they could find an unsatisfied customer anywhere. But there was never a...
Yeah, so you assume that probably they just targeted you because your technology is basically something beneficial, for the people, right? And when you say investigation, can you describe us what exactly that was? So how is it? So are you in your office and suddenly dudes come in with guns, or can you
No, it never
explain?
reached that point. It never reached that point. No, I'd get a letter in the mail, or at later times it would be an email kind of thing, probably from like a state attorney general or the Consumer and Corporate Affairs Canada, or various kinds of government agencies, many of them. I'll give the example of the one that was the state attorney general for Idaho. Evidently, because I was going back and forth between Canada and the United States a lot, this one customs director of the port that I was crossing at, he may have had a bad experience with somebody else who was a fuel saver fraud. And he leaned across the desk to my partner and actually said, "I think your guys are a fraud." And so it turns out that he's the one that reported us to the state attorney general for Idaho, it was between British Columbia and Idaho that we were going back and forth. The point is, the state attorney general of Idaho sent us a letter asking for all these records, which I provided within a few days' time. And then the investigation dragged on and on. And so I went down to his office and actually stood right there in front of him and said, "Hey, I'm an American citizen. I'm entitled to speedy due process. Tell me what's going on." And within a week, I got a letter saying the investigation was closed. They weren't endorsing my product, but they could see my business was not doing any kind of fraud. So they shut down the investigation. So that's the kind of thing that happened. As far as the investigations go, it was a lot of harassment, but I was never arrested. There was never anybody busting down the doors with guns or anything like some other people have had. But then there was interesting kinds of sabotage. When I started selling the Hyco 2A kits, which I was just talking about, the one that went on my RV, there was a time when I went off to write another book. And during that time, my business had been, the people who were fulfilling my orders had been told if a customer didn't get an order within 4 weeks, we just simply automatically would send another order because it would be lost in the mail. That would happen a couple times a year. But while I was gone, this happened to virtually every order that was over a certain size. So the smaller orders were going through, but the larger orders were not. And the mailroom really didn't pick up on that because they weren't used to watching for that sort of thing. So there were hundreds of orders that didn't get to my customers. And then I came back from my working vacation, and by this time, the second one had already gone out, the second batch. So the customers had paid their money. So I sent out a third batch, but I insured everyone. I wasn't insuring the orders at that time, but I insured every order for 3 times the amount of the actual order, thinking that these ones would disappear as well, and I'd get all my money back. But in the meantime, what happened was that third batch, when I went in about 4 weeks later with my insurance certificates, they said, "No, you have to wait 90 days, okay, before you can do the insurance." And at the end of the 90 days, I submitted the insurance claims. And at that point, I was a couple months out of business because my markup wasn't that great, and I'd already now sent out 3 for every one that the person had bought. And so it wiped me out. And that was kind of the purpose, I think, of this whole thing. It took me years to get back up to a level of business. Anyway, every single one of those customers received that third package. but they received it 3 days before also receiving a letter asking them to confirm that they received the package. The post office did not have to pay me that 3 times value. Now, you can't get 3 times insurance value on your packages anymore. They closed that loophole a few years back. So that's what happened. And essentially then I didn't get the insurance, but every customer got their product. So that was good. And that's an example of the kinds of suppression that I was having. And other inventors that had similar things like the fish carburetor and things like that. It's a whole nother story. But that's examples of the kind of suppression and intimidation and harassment. And there's lots and lots more stories. I had, back in those days, for example, I wasn't living in a city, so I was living in the country, and we had what's called party lines, physical lines. You didn't have cell phones or anything in those days. And my party line had 4 people on it. But for my business, I didn't want somebody else listening in when I'm doing my business calls. So I actually bought another party line and paid for all 4 numbers. So I was paying 4 times for my business. And I was having odd things happening on the line, odd noises and things. So I asked the operator, because that's what you did in those days, you called the operator, and she ran a trace on the line and said, there's somebody else on your line. And I said, no, there's not. I paid for all 4 lines. And then she backpedaled. And essentially what happened was my phone was tapped. Yeah, that even way back then. So
For real?
Yeah, for real.
Why, George? Are you a mean? I don't see you as a mean guy, as a criminal. You don't seem like the Russian mafia gangster to me.
Nope,
Right?
nope. I was just doing what they didn't want to, and succeeding at what they didn't want to have done. And in my books and literature, I show, for example, the 14-to-1 air fuel mixture that they teach all the mechanics, including myself. I went to mechanic school, is incorrect. It's wrong. It's a lie. Okay, but it's only a lie in internal combustion. In external combustion, it's the truth. So if you're burning gasoline in external combustion in open air, you need the 14.7-to-1 air fuel ratio. But as soon as you put that gasoline into a cylinder that's compressed and going up to a few atmospheres of pressure, the combustion ratio entirely changes, a lot leaner. You can burn a lot leaner mixture, which is a good thing, because the way the fuel systems work these days and those days, you wouldn't even be able to burn the fuel mixture in an open air. It's way too rich to burn. The actual mixture that burns is a lot leaner. In any case, I did develop a fuel saver using Brown's gas for internal combustion engines, which incidentally still works on fuel injected engines, electronic fuel injection, mechanical fuel injection, doesn't matter. So as the carburetors started to disappear, I evolved my business into helping the more modern vehicles be able to get fuel economy. And at the same time, the reason I got into Brown's gas was because I heard that this gas could weld plastic to tungsten or titanium. And as an inventor, I like to learn all these things and have these kind of tools in my shop. So I wanted to get a Brown's gas machine, and they quoted me, I think it was $300,000 to get one of these machines that would provide enough Brown's gas to replace the fuel in an acetylene torch. And that was way outside my budget. That was so as an inventor, understanding electrolysis, I decided, okay, I'm going to build my own Brown's gas machine. So I researched everything I could on Brown's gas, and I built a machine based on my alternative energy research, which is a whole nother line of research that I do to try to make energy efficiency happen, which goes off into the Tesla technology and things. And I combined my alternative energy research in with everything I learned about Brown's gas electrolyzers with a few other experiments. I was doing that with my Brown's gas book 1, which people can buy. And then with Brown's gas book 2, I built an electrolyzer, a Brown's gas electrolyzer that could power an acetylene torch. And also I did run internal combustion engines off that when they're just sitting there. The engine wasn't powering a generator that made the electricity that makes the gas, just the electricity from the wall, providing the gas, running internal combustion engines. So I could experiment with that sort of technology as well. In any case, I made these machines, these Brown's gas machines, large Brown's gas machines to provide enough fuel. And I sold those. I sold probably a couple hundred of them and recovered my research funds, which incidentally was about $300,000. but it was spread out over time, and then I recovered that from sale of machines. So that was good. But I had this machine, and those hundreds of machines were out there, plus thousands of the fuel savers, brown's gas fuel savers that I called Hyzor. And this was in 1996, one of my, what I call water torch customers, got back in touch with me and said he bubbled the brown's gas in water and had put the water on a cotton ball and put that in a plastic cap and taped it onto a melanoma on his forehead. Then he just kept re-wetting the cotton ball several times a day. And in 3 weeks' time, the melanoma was gone. Skin cancer, totally gone, healed. And melanoma is one of the most aggressive types of cancer. So it's really, it was very impressive what he was saying, but there were no pictures. And quite frankly, I didn't think you could take a combustible gas and use it for health purposes. So I didn't believe him. I did not believe him. I didn't tell him that I didn't believe him at the time. Instead, what I did was I said to all the other thousands of people that were my customers, I said, here's a potential use for brown's gas. I don't know about it, but there's a rumor going around. And so I told them about the bubbling in the water, and several people tried it, and the testimonials started coming in, helping other ailments. And then from then, it was 2005, so 1996 to 2005, my customers finally convinced me to drink brown's gas bubbled water. I'm the inventor of the brown's gas machine, and I had all this technology, but I just didn't even bubble it in the water for myself. Like I said, I didn't believe him. But from 2005 to 2007, and actually up till today, I didn't get sick. And I used to get sick, like with a cold or flu or something like that, every winter, 2 or 3 times a winter, like clockwork, I would get sick. I didn't get sick. And I thought, hey, this is kind of nice. And it didn't give me any ill effects or anything either. So like I say, I always try things with myself first, and then I teach other people how to do it. So then I put out the word to all the people that this was a potential application, and I made a tabletop electrolyzer specifically designed for that purpose, where people could, instead of spending $3,000 on a water torch, they could spend $500 or $600 on a tabletop design brown's gas machine. And it was just made out of pipe fittings, and more story on that in just a little bit. But in any case, then the testimonials really started to flow in, where people, because they had the dedicated use, it wasn't just a few people trying it, people were doing it dedicated for that. And from 2007 to March of 2016, people were asking me, can we inhale the gas? Like for example, I have here so now I'm actually inhaling the brown's gas, okay? And they asked, could we do this? And I said, no, no, it's not a good idea, because I knew it to be a combustible gas. Okay, I didn't want people inhaling a gas that could explode in their lungs. Yes, exactly. So I didn't inhale the gas until later as well. But what happened was a customer in 2015, December of 2015, sent me a video of a Korean hydrogen bar that had brown's gas, where people could come in off the street, and like we buy a cup of coffee, they could sit down and get a brown's gas treatment, 10 minutes or something. And I realized at that point, I was watching that video, that I was an idiot. This is an occupational hazard. I find myself to be an idiot quite often. As an inventor, I'm wrong most of the time.
I have to stop you here. For anybody listening, to admit your mistakes, in my eyes at least, is something that the smartest people I've seen doing. So good job. So before you continue, you said 2 things. First of all, you said that the guy that said, he had a melanoma, and he said to you that he used. How did you ask him why, and how did the idea came to his mind?
That is a really good question. I actually didn't ask him that, and I've wondered that many times since. Because how? Why would a person even think of that? Like what?
Yeah.
Exactly. Why would you take a gas that you're going to put in your torch to burn and bubble it in water to like? No idea. But he had the inspiration, and I don't take claim for that. It was fed to me from this guy, who did a really good thing by informing me. Like, he wouldn't necessarily have had to do that even. There have been people who inform me of mistakes that they've made, which were kind of idiotic, and it takes some integrity to do that. Okay, so I don't know. The answer is I don't know. I wish I did.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No worries.
it's one of
We
those
will find him. We will find him and ask him
someday. Yes,
because
someday.
I connected this thing with what you said about inventions and reinventions. So it seems to me that maybe that guy, because he had the melanoma and he thought he would die, so he researched very deeply on many ancient books or something, and he figured no something similar to what you're doing, and that may be the case. And I have to ask you though, now you said that the final nail to the coffin of your disbelief was the Korean thing, that it was used in
Yes,
Korea.
yes, that's correct. So somebody was already doing it. Again, I can't claim credit for that. But I realized that if you mix enough of the gas with enough air, it becomes non-combustible. This is my slap my head for in the moment when I'm thinking, I knew this. I knew this all along. Why didn't I realize that? So what happens is when you're inhaling a small amount of Brown's gas with a lot of air, the gas is not combustible because it's under the lower combustible limit of hydrogen in air, which is approximately 4.7%. Hydrogen in air is combustible. So as long as you have a mixture of air hydrogen mixture that is under 4.7%, it's not combustible. So there's no problem. But at that time, and this is a really sad part of my story, and but it's important because in the end it's why I do what I do. Back in about 2010, my late wife started to get very, very ill, and we didn't know what the problem was. She wouldn't go to a regular allopathic doctor because she was very high integrity for alternative medicine and doctors. And she didn't want to go to an allopathic doctor because she felt honor bound to do whatever he said, and she didn't want to take any of the modern drugs or those sort of things. They could do the diagnosis and find out what the problem was, but then she felt she'd be obligated to take this, and that's just the way she felt. In any case, she was getting sicker and sicker. We did the best we could, and when it came to December of 2015, I was her 24/7 caretaker. At that point, I couldn't be away from her side more than 20 or 30 minutes at a time. I did all the cooking and cleaning, and she couldn't even roll over in bed without assistance. So I carried her to the bathroom. I did everything for her. This wonderful woman who was now blind and couldn't move, and her hair had fallen out, and she had beautiful hair. That was one of the things that hurt her the most when she lost her beautiful hair. But she was a multimedia artist, and she'd ran alternative schools, Montessori school as a director, and like early childhood education. So the fact that she couldn't do her art anymore or any of those things, it was just making her life very small, very not worth living. And she even begged me to let her go, but I couldn't do that. In any case, she died in March of 2016. And shortly before her death, because I had to take her to the hospital because she couldn't breathe anymore. It was a very sad time. It took about 10 days from that point until she was gone. And I won't describe the depths of grief that I had at that time. It was insanity. I've never felt so much pain in all of my life. And I grew up on a cattle ranch. Broken bones and things were, normal. But nothing can equal that kind of pain. And we discovered, because the allopathic doctors did the tests, and they discovered it was a very severe form of lupus. And that's important in just a minute. So she was gone, and I didn't really care if I lived or died at that point. I honestly, there were times that I felt my chest hurting so bad, I realized I hadn't even taken a breath. I was so depressed that I even was forgetting to breathe. So I decided, okay, I'm going to breathe some Brown's gas. So I rigged up my machine. I remembered I was just trying to do something to kind of get my mind going again. And I remembered this guy had sent me this video in December of 2015. So here was March of 2016. And I decided, okay, I'll take this machine that I designed for bubbling water, and I'll rig it up, and I'll videotape myself doing this. So that if something bad happens, there'll at least be a video record of my insanity and stupidity. And that video is on my YouTube channel. People can go and watch that, and they will be able to see, if they compare that video with this one right today, and see how I look. Like I had this was all white. I had less hair. I had this. You could see that I actually have rejuvenated from that time to this time. The experiment went fairly well. there were some interesting side effects. For example, I inhaled for 15 minutes that first night at about 6:30 in the evening, and I couldn't sleep all night. I was wide awake. It wasn't like a coffee buzz or anything like that. And it was also very disconcerting because I wanted to sleep. I was grieving. I just wanted to zone out. But I laid there in bed all night thinking that I was going to fall asleep at any given time because I can usually fall asleep easily. And nope, none of that. So as I continued to inhale, I stepped it up from 15 minutes to more over a few weeks' time. But I did it in the mornings. So by the nighttime, I would just fall asleep normally. And then gradually, as my body got used to having enough hydrogen, I can now inhale all day, all night, no problem. It isn't an issue. I can fall asleep normally. As people start to inhale, they're going to notice what I call weirdness. And I never can tell because everybody is different. Every body is different. Okay. So what happened now that I was inhaling the gas and seeing that it wasn't in the couple of months since then, there wasn't anything bad happening to me, and I started to notice some very interesting positive effects. Like I had psoriasis on my elbows, knees, and feet. The psoriasis on my elbows, knees, and feet I thought was calluses, actually, this thick, peeling white skin, because I grew up on a cattle ranch and I had lots of calluses. And so I'd had this psoriasis from when I was quite young, and my skin started to peel off like a snake, shedding its skin. And that was very disconcerting to have fairly large patches of skin peeling off my body. But the skin underneath was absolutely baby skin smooth. It was perfect, beautiful skin as this outer layer just peeled right off. So that was one thing that happened. Another thing that I noticed a little bit later was that all my warts were gone. I had hand warts and I had a plantar's wart on my foot, and they were completely gone. And I noticed my neuropathies disappearing. Now, these are just some of the effects. Like I thought I was healthy. When I started inhaling the gas, I didn't do it because I wanted to get healthy. I did it just because I just wanted to prove it wouldn't harm. Because as far as I knew, at this particular point, all it would do is help me not get sick, because that's what's happening with the bubbled water. But the health effects of inhaling the gas were like 10 times better than just drinking the water. Now, I have discovered since that you need to do both. You need to drink the water and inhale the gas to get the most optimal synergistic effect. Okay, so my neuropathies, I was losing the feeling in the palm of my left hand. It was just gradually losing the feeling going toward my fingers. And I was thinking I was going to lose the use of my hand just because it was going to go numb. And of course, I also had arthritis in both hands, my right one worse than the other one. The arthritis is completely gone. The feeling came back in my hand. And then I realized the neuropathies I had on my fronts of my shins from my knee down to my feet, both shins had gone numb. I couldn't feel anything there. And I got full feeling back there. I don't wear glasses anymore. It just on and on and on. My body was rejuvenating from the inhalation.
That's amazing. I have to stop you there. So you say you don't wear glasses anymore. Is that true? So do you have nearsightedness? Did you have nearsightedness?
I did, and I do have nearsightedness, but it's improved to the point where it's not that big of a deal. I do still carry my glasses because my driver's license says I have to have them. So I have them tucked under my shirt. So if I see those lights behind me and I have to pull over, I put on my glasses. So so it's one of those things. And of course, if I want to see really good detail on faraway mountains, then I'll put on my glasses as well because I am still nearsighted. But for regular work and driving and reading and all that, my eyes are just fine. It's like it was back when I was about 9 years old. So that was the thing about the hand warts and the plantar's wart too. Those are things I'd had for decades, the hand warts for almost 50 years. And then all of a sudden they disappeared. They were just gone. So my body was rejuvenating, and I can get into why that kind of happens. But first I want to say, I made the recommendation out to my customers that they could take all these people that had bought ER50 machines to bubble water. I told them how they could actually then start inhaling the gas from that same machine. And then the testimonials really started to come in. And the one that almost killed me, almost was worse than my wife dying, was a woman who had lupus. And in 3 weeks' time, inhaling the gas, her lupus symptoms were gone. I cannot tell you how badly that hurt it because here I am from 1986. I was experimenting with Brown's gas. I was told that it was good for health purposes in 1996. I didn't listen. I didn't listen to these signals from the universe. I didn't give my beautiful bride the Brown's gas bubbled water, and she never got a chance to inhale the gas, which may have entirely mitigated her lupus that killed her. All the things that happened to her, all the degradations, all the embarrassments, and the things that most of us had to go through, because it isn't just the person that's sick, it's the support system as well. All those things, if I'd have listened, wouldn't have had to happen. So at that point, that was bad. That was really and the only thing I could think of to do at that point was to then dedicate my life, get it back up off the floor, and help as many people as possible not go through that couple of decades of life that I and my wife had to go through. So that's why I'm doing this. I don't need the money. I have money. I have investments. I have my house. Everything is done. I could retire. But I feel an absolute passion to help as many people as possible not suffer like we did.
Yeah. No. I can't really feel how you feel now, George. I cannot be in your shoes very easily, because what you had, your experience, your bonding with your wife, your ex-wife, is something that I cannot really duplicate in my heart. And what you said though about the universe sending us some signs in advance, I can really attest to that also in my life. I've seen the same pattern as you see, a very painful pattern where you do something, you focus on learning something, and sometimes the universe sends you something in your way, and you are at that time you are very arrogant. Then something bad happens in your life, and you don't know how to, really make sense of it, and then you come across an evidence that you could use, and you basically realize that sometimes we are not exactly arrogant because we want to hurt other people, but we don't take the leap of faith as often as we should probably, and we fear something. It's bad, and at the same time it's a gift. I think from what you're saying here, what you're sharing is that luck or the universe dealt you a bad card, a bad play, but at the same time you found a way, which is admirable, honestly, to transmute that pain and to make it useful, to make it a force for good. And this is not something small. Many people would, in your place, I think, if I was you, I don't know if I had the courage to keep on, but this alchemic process that you did, to help people, and I see that in your other interviews. I've going through some of them, and I've seen that now with you, that you have a way and enthusiasm that's really admirable. You are a guy that works many hours, if I can guess correctly.
Yes.
Yeah, and you wake up very early, and you're always there, smiling and enthusiastically, accepting people's invitations, offering, something great to humanity. And there's only one way to make this engine of yours moving on, and I think it was that pain, it was that memory, and it is that memory. It's still in your heart, and I think it's the strongest force. Love, the love for your ex-wife keeps going on for other people now. It fuels you to be relentless, really, and I admire that. And I know that probably it's very hard for you, and it's easy for me to say, but I hope that you keep doing this, what you do.
I appreciate the sentiment, and you taking there for a little bit, because I allowed me to catch my breath a little bit. Okay, thank you. All right, so in the end, I was convinced now of inhaling the gas, obviously. So I didn't listen to the universe back in 1996. It took me into 2005 when my customers were telling me. And then from 2005 to 2016, my customers were asking me, can we inhale the gas? I said no, until my customers again convinced me that it was a good idea to give it a try. And now I see the benefits, not only what I already explained, but many more. And people can go to my website. I specifically have a list of those things on my eagle-research.life, L-I-F-E website, which is pretty much Brown's Gas for Health dedicated little mini side website. They can see about my history and my path that I've described up until now. So my life then started to come back together, which I've also noticed that when you're on the right path, personally, I call it the golden path, the path that you're here for. My late wife used to call it the sacred contract, why were you born path. And when you need something, it comes to you. Like everything in the process of building these AquaCure machines, so many times the things I need just come just in time, okay, to prevent the pausing or whatever. So I've learned to trust that and use that as a guide. If what I'm doing is the right thing, then what I need is always provided to me as I need it. I have to go out and get it. God helps those who help themselves, kind of thing. But what you need is always there and at the right time. It's like traveling on a path in the night. And if you start to get off the path into the gravel, you can feel the gravel. So you know you're not going right. And if you continue off, then you'll go off into the thorns and weeds. And what you're traveling at night with your eyes closed. You can't see. You just have to feel. You have to go by feeling. So I can feel this is the right path for me because the things that I need are coming to me as I need it. And I've been bypassing issues that could have been a problem simply by doing things in a helpful manner. When a customer gets a hold of me and they're having a problem, I think to myself, how would I want to be treated? And then I treat them that way. And it seems to work very well. So we build a machine that is well designed. It produces a high quality of Brown's gas, and we can get into quality. That's a whole nother subject that isn't necessarily covered out there. And it's easily maintained and it's easily fixed. Again, back because I'm a lazy person, I don't want it to break down. And if it does break down, I want it to be easy to be fixed. So it's also something that can be fixed mostly by local do-it-yourselfer people because there aren't any technicians out there for this. It's not like you have an automobile and you can go to a local mechanic shop. This technology is new out there, and so people either have to maintain or fix it themselves, or somebody close by should be able to fix it. So these are the kind of philosophies that I'm using to develop this technology that then is getting spread out on the world. And another thing that I'm doing is, again, like when I was installing the carburetor enhancers, I couldn't install carburetor enhancer on every carburetor in North America. It wasn't physically possible. So I trained other people to do it. Now I'm doing the same thing with the AquaCures. I'm developing a training program so that people can build their own and build them for other people, make their own business building AquaCure machines.
I have to say, George, you are going to be a very bad politician because you want to relinquish control, and that's really not the status quo. That's weird. You decentralize things. Why? Why are you doing this? Very lame of you.
Well, you're right that it isn't the normal way that people do things because everybody wants control, and that's what patents are all about. But I've discovered that I actually want my technologies to be used, and I can't do it myself. Like if I was Elon Musk and I built a gigafactory, tried to centralize everything in one place, yes, I'd be a very rich man. But what is wealth really? Once you have all the food you need, you have warmth and comfort, you have the clothes, you have a beautiful, loving spouse. How much more money do you really need? You can't take it with you. Like when we shed this organic robotic body that we inhabit, we don't take any of that with us. And so how much do you really need? What is real wealth? And I like quality of life. When you feel like you're doing what you should be doing and you can enjoy the life around you and the people love you and your heart is filled with joy, that's real wealth, in my opinion. Not money. Money, I think they say the love of money is the root of all evil kind of thing. Money itself isn't, but the love of it. And money is good, don't get me wrong. It's needed in society as we have it. We need to be able to have a medium in between buying and selling things. But how much more do you need than that? My investments are already making more than my expenses, so it's okay. What I want is for people to be healthy. I want this passion of mine to spread out over the world, and not only health, but wealth. Like, how many other people have lost their jobs recently due to this current insanity that's out there, that don't have a way of making a living, but they're a do-it-yourselfer person that has a garage, and they could be making these things and make a really good living making and selling them. So that's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to make a course. I'm in the middle of doing it now. By June, maybe July at the latest, there'll be a course. People can contact me, and I'll give them. They could sign up to my newsletter to be informed when it's available. Now, it is $10,000. It's not for free. People will have to invest to learn how to do this. But then they can have a 6 or perhaps even certainly 5, 6 or even 7-figure income with the knowledge that I will give them in this course. And they'll be able to help people. So now I'm going to be helping people. I'm going to be setting it up so that in all countries around the world, there'll be people starting to build the AquaCure machines, and they'll just startups everywhere. And by the time that the pharmaceutical companies that are essentially, it isn't the companies, it's the owners, but by the time the vested interests, the global technocrats realize what this technology can do and is doing, there'll be little spots all over the place. It won't be just me. See, that's the problem with an inventor that holds everything inside their head. Is all you just did to put a bullet through that head, and it's gone.
True. Yeah. I'm really glad that you really do this course, and I'm also really glad that you put a price on the course, because one thing I know from people is that too much free can really make our minds wander around and take no action. So in our era. And I know that I'm younger than you, but I think that you see the same thing like I see in the past 2 decades. We are overrun with free content and with free advertising and with free movies and with free that and with free porn, to be honest. And yeah, and I know that's funny to say that even porn, which is a really bad thing for most young men, which is a really an addiction. It's basically an addiction, and destroys society. It may sound funny, it may sound quirky, kinky, whatever, but it's a true statement that it destroys families, it destroys future families, and it destroys neighborhoods, it destroys people's livelihoods. People send money to other people for no reason, and the suicide. So it's destruction of lives, and even that could be avoided just 2 decades ago, because it wasn't free, and people had to take action to do it, and not many people are brave. First of all, there has to be a barrier to entry to something, so that it has to be valued. And I like to come back and close the parenthesis. I like very much that you put a barrier to entry to your course, because if somebody's really serious about it and he's done the market research, I don't know, do you offer the market research, by the way? Do you offer any market validation data or something?
Yes, some, yes, as well as in America, there's a way to not have to pay taxes on this for the United States citizens. I can teach how to do that. So you're awesome. Not giving the government money that they don't deserve.
Yeah. Oh, don't say this, George. You sound like a butthurt, you know. That's another conversation for off YouTube. So okay. Tell us a little bit about the course before we continue going on about the machine and the AquaCure and all that, and all the books you have.
Right. Well, the course itself, the building of the AquaCure, first of all, full video, like showing every single step. Also, the what I call the bill of materials and supplier contact list. With that alone is worth the $10,000. Like, even if you didn't have anything else, because that cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars over time to find all the right people, the best people, and alternatives to them. So there's those 2 things. There's the market research, so people can get an idea of how much is in their own area. I'm going to be having a section on the website which actually shows a little pin of all the AquaCures and ER50s that are out there around the world. So they can see in their own area, because they're everywhere already. There's thousands of them out there. So they'll be able to see that there's people nearby them. And because the way the website is set up, they'll be able to contact those people privately without sharing actual contact information. Just on the website, it'll be private communications. So people can start to get together. So not only can you have the course and how to build everything, but the communities of these people who are helping each other can start to form. So that is additional on the website. And then, of course, the paperwork that you need, everything on the way I handle employees or what I call contractors, and all these kind of things are described for that $10,000. And virtually anybody can make that back within a year, no problem. Even if they're only building 2 AquaCures a month, they'd be able to recover that $10,000. But if they're building 4 AquaCures a month or 1 a week, and there's no reason why a single assembler, when you get set up, can do 3 to 5 a day. So there's no reason why people couldn't make a lot of money.
That's very, very, very interesting, and I'm applauding the effort. And I might be there. I might take the course. I'll see how I'll go with probably next year. I'll be better with my finances. So I have to ask though, George, since the government tried to stop you, do you believe that, based on your research and your intuition, do you think that there's going to be a few obstacles for the people buying the course, trying to basically sell the machines to the people? What are something people to be aware of the marketplace?
First of all, you have to be very careful with any health things, because the way the allopathic system has been set up, you can't even use the words like cure and heal in some countries and things like that. So you have to be very careful of how you advertise. Now, fortunately with myself, I really haven't done any advertising. I've been selling machines just because of my reputation more than anything, almost faster than I can build them. At this particular point, I have a back order queue because I had an interview on a podcast similar to yourself. And this guy, his listeners just bought hundreds of machines.
You mean, first of all, I have to interrupt here and to claim who that man is, who that gentleman is. And I think you mean Crow, probably, yeah?
That's correct, yes.
I'm a listener of Crow, so that's where I found you. And I have to say props to Crow and to Jason for bringing all these beautiful guests, like you. These guys are doing an excellent job. And because of them, and that's something to keep in mind for both of us, because of them, many podcasts have sprouted. Because of them, many people have exploded their business. Because of them, many people have learned how to think freely. So I really admire them as much as I admire you. So thank you for bringing them up,
And I think platforms like yourself and Crow and Greg Carlwood was another big one for me. And there's several others that I've had to say, I just can't be on your podcast yet because you're too big. I don't even want to say the people's names, but they want to have me on. And I say, I need to build up an inventory again or get this manufacturing course out there so that a lot of other people are manufacturing as well. And then when I go on and I talk about these things, I'll have a list on my website of the various manufacturers so that people can buy them directly from them. They don't need to buy them from me at that point. Each of these will be independent businesses that I'll talk, and a rising tide floats all boats, they say. So as the awareness of this becomes more and more aware and more people realize what it can do, what it really can do, they'll flock to these various people, these manufacturers. And there has to be a way to support this kind of demand. That's essentially the way I've chosen to do. Instead of having a big mega factory, I'm intending to have lots of independent people out there. And that's actually a protection for me as well. Because if it isn't just in my head, if everything they need to know is in dozens or hundreds of heads out there, it becomes a lot harder to stop. And if there's no patents on any of it, anybody can build them. Again, it's a lot harder to stop. So again, you get back to what kind of resistance can they expect? At the moment, I'm actually astonished at how little resistance there is out there. I expect there to become some resistance, but if people act with integrity and treat their customers well, so there's no customers that complain, so you can't afford a single complaining customer. That's just right out front. You have to be able to help people and do what the allopathic doctors were sworn oaths to do. First, do no harm. And then secondly, heal. Do what you can to heal. And any honest doctor is going to realize or understand that they don't heal people. Doctors do not heal people. that may sound strange because of the meme, the way that people understand. The best doctors can do is put the body in a state or a condition that it can heal itself. Bodies always heal themselves. A doctor that realizes that and tries to get the body into that state where it can heal itself is going to do the best good. And one of the most important nutrients that a person can give is hydrogen. We're 62% hydrogen by volume, our bodies. And most water-based life forms are falling to about that range. We're 24% oxygen, 12% carbon, and 2% everything else. So people are talking about the importance of magnesium and copper and potassium and all of these micronutrients, what I call micronutrients, and they're not thinking of the 62% that is the hydrogen, or where we get it from and all that kind of thing. We could get back to that in a little bit. So again, on the suppression thing, if we're very careful, we'll be able to start up dozens of micro factories all over the world that will be helping people. And there are actually several alternatives out there right now. They're not just myself. There's several other people that are making Brown's gas machines. And I choose Brown's gas over hydrogen. Brown's gas includes hydrogen plus electrically expanded water and oxygen. So there's a mixture, and the synergistic mixture is proving to be about 30% more therapeutic than just straight hydrogen. People should be having at least hydrogen supplementation these days. There's a lot of reasons for that. But I just simply go for the gold standard. I want to set a high standard for the technology, and that's what I maintain. And then there's other companies out there that do lesser expensive machines because they don't include all of the functionality, practicality, safety, all these things. They're safe enough. They're not generally going to hurt somebody, but I have multiple redundancies and I design for industrial strength. It meets every safety standard in the world, my AquaCure machine. So even that cost me about $150,000 to do. So all of this people get essentially handed to them for the course of the $10,000. Of course, they're still going to have to buy parts and set themselves up in their workshop and what have you. But I'm handing this out because I want the technology to spread out in the world and start helping people. And I can't do it myself. I need help. So I think that there isn't a lot of suppression at the moment, like there was with in my fuel saver days. It's actually quite astonishing, but that's kind of where we're at.
Great news, George. I don't know where to start. Really, I have many questions. Really interesting. I didn't know that you have that planning ahead, and I'm really glad. I had yesterday a conversation with Clive DeCarl about the Tesla devices, like I told you, the Tesla devices, and you know more about these. And I was saddening to know that they're not very produced in our era, based from what I understand. They're not very easily to produce, and I think that the faster that was in my mind yesterday. I was talking to my brother, and I was trying to think, how are these technologies evaporating from Earth? And not only technologies, you can go and outside and go to a beautiful ancient city, and you can see beautiful architecture, Gothic architecture in cathedrals, and you see no more of these buildings are today reproduced and replicated, and you are wondering, if you are a smart person, smart human, how did we lose that ability to do such things? Did we lose, first of all, the ability? Is that something that it's controlled, and do we have the ability, but it's controlled, and it's controlled demolition? So do they want us to be sick and die miserable in an ugly world? Because I don't know about you, George, but I think that for anybody, anyone included, anyone concerned, it's better, even if you are a king, if you are a lord, isn't it better for the subjects to be healthier, happier, and live in much better and cleaner and happier and healthier and faster and more beautiful world? So if I was a lord, I would be glad that you are here, George. Let's say I'm a lord. I'm your lord. You are my subject. I would be like, I would be full of joy, and I would probably give you money and patronize, give you money to, how do you say, the patrons, the patrons, the guys, pay for the artist or the inventor. So I will give you a lot of money to make it faster and faster, because the faster you do that, the more healthy the people will be, and the more they will be work for me, and they will work for us, and the more wealthy I will be, because everybody's going to be rich, and I will be just richer than them, and that's fine because everybody's going to be happier. It doesn't make any sense when you lose that technology, and I'm so glad that you do this. Yes, really, I'm really glad. It brings me joy. That's my that's my comment. And do you have anything else to add regarding the course, or should we move on?
Well, just to kind of expand on what you were just saying, there's a book out there called The Richest Man in Babylon, and I definitely recommend it as a beginner reader for anyone who wants to know how to make money and be wealthy, because it describes the rules of money. Money has rules just like gravity, like you drop something and it falls down. And money has exactly those same kind of rules. And if you understand the rules of money, you will have money flow to you instead of flow away from you. Okay, so the richest man in Babylon. But the story, the reason I'm remembering this is that in the city of Babylon, the king of Babylon had a thought and asked his advisors. He says, I'm noticing that the rich people pay taxes and the poor people don't. And he says, I want to be richer. So what if we made everybody in Babylon rich? And then everybody would be able to pay their taxes and I would become richer. So this was the basic underlying thing, like what you're saying there. This was a patron. And so he called this guy who was rich, or he called a rich man who had been a poor man. He called this rich man that had made his wealth, and he said, yeah, how did you do it? Can you teach other people to do it? And this rich man said, yes, this can be taught. Anybody can. And so the king decided he'd make every individual in Babylon rich, and he offered this guy a course. He essentially went to the local university, what their university was there, and he had this guy speak. They brought in 100 people that were essentially poor and taught them the rules of money. And then over time, these people became rich. And the idea was then they would teach other people, and they continued like that until Babylon was essentially the richest city on earth at that particular time. And then, of course, greed got in the way, and Babylon's now dust. But that's beside the point. The point is that this king had this idea, and it worked. So people who want to learn about money and how to get it and achieve all their dreams, I would recommend starting with the book The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. And it's out there on the internet. It's been reprinted hundreds of times. It's a bestseller like the Bible. It works. I think we're good on that right at the moment as far as the course is concerned. We've done a good job of saying, get in touch with me by email. You can go to my website on the contact us page. So it's either the eagle like a bird, -research.com or .life, either one. Go to the contact page, send me an email saying, I'd like to know about your AquaCure manufacturing course, and I'll send you a little blurb about how to get onto that list. All the details that you need to know before you spend $10,000 will be there, questions answered, that kind of thing. And of course, we'll have as much support as we can for all of these loose consortium of manufacturers. I call it a franchise-like. It's not a franchise, it's your own individual business, but a franchise-like business because the information is coming from a central source. And this has already been happening. I already have a student that originally took the course before the pandemic hit and made an in-person course not possible. So this guy already took the course when it was an in-person course, and he's making at least 6 figures right now. But he's given me some information, okay? I'm like you see, I seem like a very smart man, but I'm actually a very slow thinker. And what I'm good at is organizing information as it comes to me. Like when I was doing the fuel savers, I was selling hundreds and then thousands of fuel savers, and then people got back to me with their results and things that happened. And so I put those together and sent that information back out. I was at the top of essentially an information pyramid. So as the information flowed up to me, I sorted it out, and then I sent it back out, the relevant information. And then everybody thinks I'm a very smart man when actually all I'm doing is telling them what they told me, but telling everybody. So in this franchise-like thing, everybody will cooperate, ideally. And as the information, better and better ways of doing things and comes available, then that gets sorted out and sent out to everyone else. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about for the course. I call it franchise-like. It's not going to be a franchise. I'm not going to do that. Everybody will be independent, but we want everybody to be as close as possible to the standard. And as the standard raises, then raise the standard as well. And just get the technology out there and help as many people as possible. Okay.
That was great. So, all right, let's change page and turn the page and go to the machine itself. I want to ask you, what is the difference between brown gas and hydrogen? So can you elaborate a little bit about other machines maybe that are similar to you, maybe the Korean ones, and also talk a little bit about hydrogen water, because there are some machines there and some tablets, I think, and I think you referenced one. So why is best for people to buy the brown gas instead of going for a cheaper option and try to, do the hydrogen water thing?
Okay. We'll start with what is Brown's gas. Okay, hydrogen is fairly well known. It's H2 molecule. That's two hydrogens that are bound together in a diatomic form. So they often call that molecular hydrogen. But what is Brown's gas? Why is it different than molecular hydrogen? Well, it turns out that Brown's gas is still made in an electrolyzer, similar to the hydrogen electrolyzers, but there's no membrane in the middle. What that means is there's two electrodes. One's called a cathode, one's called an anode. And in the middle, they used to have what they call traditional Faraday electrolysis. They have a membrane which separates the gases, because oxygen is made on the anode and hydrogen is made on the cathode. And then as these gases evolve off the electrodes, anode and cathode, they accumulate at the top of the chamber, and then they go out two different gas hoses. So it's a double gas coming out. We have oxygen coming out one side, hydrogen coming out the other. What Brown's gas does is has no membrane in the middle. So all the oxygen and hydrogen come out one hose as a mixture, okay? And we thought that it would be a very efficient way of doing electrolysis, since in the experiments that we were doing, helping combustion of internal combustion engines and with torches, fueling an acetylene torch, it made sense to have the gases mixed together already. It made it very simple, because you had to mix the gases in any case in order to have the combustion enhancement or to have a flame on a torch. So just simply not take them apart in the first place. Well, it turned out that in 1996, first of all, I was noticing that our gas production was greater than it should be. If you use the Faraday equations, we were getting more gas than we should. So we were just thinking, oh, we have very efficient electrolyzers. Well, in 1996, I built a transparent electrolyzer, and I saw something that I had never seen before, ever, even way back. I took physics in high school. They did the oxygen-hydrogen separations, electrolysis, and all these kind of experiments. Everything I'd ever learned, I did not see this until that time. There was a third gas being generated in the Brown's gas electrolyzer. Exactly in the middle between the anode and cathode, a gas was forming right out of the fluid itself. And the line of bubbles was so thick that it's almost like having another plate. It was like, and I have pictures of this. So there was this third gas forming. And before, like in Brown's gas book 1, I was theorizing that perhaps when the Brown's gas was forming, the oxygen and hydrogen didn't recombine. So we're getting O and H molecules, and that's where we're getting the extra volume. You get twice as much volume by doing that. But now I could see that a third gas was forming. The actual electrolysis was forming just the same, but there was a third gas forming, which I eventually ended up calling electrically expanded water. The idea being that as the electrons are moving across what's called an electron bridge between the anode and cathode, some of those electrons are getting stuffed into water. The water is soaking up the electrons like a sponge soaks up water. So then it becomes expanded to the point where it becomes a gaseous form of water that is not water vapor or steam. Like if you cool it, it won't condense. The water vapor and steam will condense out of the gaseous mixture, but this electrically expanded water will not. We now knew that it wasn't monatomic hydrogen and oxygen, although in Brown's gas there is a very tiny percentage of monatomic hydrogen and oxygen due to something they call fluid crystallization. We won't get to that. That was something that Yul Brown was describing. But anyway, the major constituents of the Brown's gas is the hydrogen, the electrically expanded water, and the oxygen in that ratio. And we make electrolyzers that are 130% efficient. So that means it's making 30% more gas than it's possible to make if you're using just straight, even if you had 100% electrolyzers making oxygen and hydrogen. So it's very important that there's no membrane in the middle. because you need this electron bridge, which if you put a membrane in place, it interrupts that electron bridge, and then you get just normal hydrogen and oxygen. So what is Brown's gas? It's the entire spectrum of mixture of gases that is evolved from an electrolyzer specifically designed to make Brown's gas. And one of the major characteristics is that there has to be no membrane. Okay, most of the hydrogen electrolyzers and the more modern ones use something called a permanent electrolyte, SPE or PEM technology. And that is essentially a membrane in between the anode and cathode. So those kind of electrolyzers cannot make Brown's gas. And interestingly enough, most of them are actually more expensive than Brown's gas machines because it is more expensive to make this permanent electrolyte membrane. So you get a lesser quality gas as far as health benefits, therapeutic benefits, and you spend more money. But they don't have lye. I should mention this. There's a big fear of lye out there. And because you need the lye as a catalyst in the Brown's gas machines, because it's the impurities in the water that transport the electrons. If water is absolutely pure, it's what's called a dielectric. It doesn't transmit electricity at all. So you have to put some impurities in there in order to transmit the electricity. The impurities have to be something that does not degrade in the electrolysis process. For example, if you put regular tap water in there, it usually has chlorine in it, and that chlorine will come out as chlorine gas in the gas coming out. You certainly don't want to inhale chlorine gas. So you have to have nothing that's impure in the machine. Now, the lye, it's called sodium hydroxide or NaOH, is one of the catalysts, and it's called a catalyst because it doesn't change in the process of the electrolysis. It stays in the machine. And for the most part, it does. A tiny little bit of the lye can come out of the machine in with the water moisture that comes out with the gas, but then that's scrubbed in our scrubber. So you have pure Brown's gas going out for health purposes. And then we pour that scrubber water back into the machine. I always try to do things in what I call twofers. Everything I'm doing, you get two for the price of one kind of thing. That's how we design things. Okay, so the Brown's gas differs from regular hydrogen and is therapeutically more beneficial. This is experimentally being proven, and it's simple, straightforward, safe, all these kind of things. So that's why I go with the Brown's gas over the hydrogen. Now, you really want hydrogen, at least hydrogen supplementation these days, because most people are hydrogen deficient. So what's happening is when you're hydrogen deficient, your body, this organic robot that we inhabit, like I was saying before, really knows how to stay alive. It's well designed. And like hypothermia, if you start to get hypothermia where you're out in the cold and your body's losing heat, your body knows to shut off blood circulation, or at least reduce it to your extremities, like your arms and legs, and to preserve core temperature. So that's an example of how your body just automatically responds to environmental or nutritional deficiencies. So if you're not getting enough hydrogen, what happens is your body starts to shut down non-immediately life-threatening systems. The first one, it seems, that goes is what's called the regeneration system, like stem cells and things like that. So if you get a cut, you will scar. That's the body patching itself instead of healing itself. So if you have scars anywhere on your body, you are hydrogen deficient. That's one quick way to tell. If you scar instead of healing, because it requires a lot of stem cells to heal skin. There's several different kinds of skin cells, including nerve cells and things like that, that all have to be regenerated, and stem cells are what the body uses to do that. So when the regeneration system gets shut down, all that stem cell and healing goes away. If you still don't have enough hydrogen, the next thing that happens is your immune systems start to shut off. Again, because they're not immediately life-threatening. Then you start to get sick in lots of different ways. Virtually all the ailments out there known to man are because the immune systems aren't working as well as they should. And science is proving this. There's now thousands of studies where they're doing the hydrogen supplementation. 100% of them are positive with zero side effects. I've not seen a single negative side effect of hydrogen supplementation because hydrogen doesn't kill anything. It's totally non-toxic. It's only there for life, which is also why I essentially call it the God molecule, because first of all, if you separate hydrogen from anything, it's so light, it just poof, goes straight up to God. It just rises. But it's also the basic building block of virtually everything in the universe. And I think even gold is made from hydrogen because of something called transmutation. And that's a subject for another time. But getting back to the body, the third thing that happens if you still don't have enough hydrogen is your organs start to fail. And that's essentially autoimmune diseases like my late wife's lupus and things like that. So when I started inhaling the hydrogen for my own personal testimony, if you will, one thing I had was a heart murmur. I'd had it all my life. And what that is a weak heart valve. And about a year after I started inhalation, I did a full physical. I had a full physical done because I was doing some stuff I needed a full physical for. And I told the doctor I have a heart murmur when he was listening with the stethoscope. And he says, "No, you don't." Well, I've had that all my life, but I don't anymore. So my heart healed as well as other organs. And the next thing, of course, was all my warts disappeared. And warts are a virus. And my body had finally immune system had gotten strong enough to get rid of a virus that I had had for over 50 years that had just resided in my body, somewhat under control. It didn't get too much worse, but it never got better. So then the next thing that happened was my neuropathies healed, which that could go in the organ thing because the skin is your largest organ. So that was healing. And interestingly enough, all of my scars disappeared off my body. So again, we've got a situation where I'm at the upper level of having enough hydrogen in my body that my body turned back on the regeneration systems. And as I explained early in the show, that actually reversed my physical look of aging. I no longer really have any crow's feet on my eyes. I was getting deep creases. And so my body has become hydrated in the most real sense of hydration, enough hydrogen. So that's why you want to have hydrogen, and you need the hydrogen supplementation. And so the question becomes, well, where do you get your hydrogen from? Like, you can't breathe it. You can't just inhale it like oxygen. You have to get it from somewhere. Turns out we get our hydrogen mostly from our food. You get some hydrogen from water, but the hydrogen-oxygen bond in water is very, very strong. So it takes a lot of energy to break that bond apart. It's easier to break apart a hydrogen-carbon bond, so hydrocarbon food, when you're eating it. The first thing that happens in the digestive system is you're masticating it, you're chewing your food, and you're putting some enzymes in there from your mouth. And then that food drops into your tummy, and in the acid bath there, it further breaks down the strength of various bonds. And then it goes into the lower intestine with the bile, and a bunch of bacteria start working on it, and you get some nutrition directly from that. And then in the large intestine, just before this exits from your body, is the specialized bacteria supposed to be there that actually finish breaking off the hydrogen from the carbons in the hydrocarbon food. So these bacteria break that off, and then the hydrogen enters your bloodstream directly through the colon or intestine's wall. Just goes straight into the bloodstream. So your intestines actually breathe, and that's a whole subject in and of itself as well. So if you don't have those bacteria that break the hydrogens from the carbons, you're not getting enough hydrogen. It turns out that those bacteria are very sensitive to artificial sweeteners, glyphosate, virtually all the chemicals that are going on out there, and interestingly enough, antibiotics. Virtually everybody's been being given antibiotics, and that kills all the good bacteria as well as the bad bacteria. And yes, it's a modern miracle, and we certainly don't want to be without antibiotics, but then you get this long-term ailment situation happening because you're now not getting enough hydrogen, and your body starts to shut down as it tries to preserve life. And you lose the ability, for example, your immune system's shut down and you get sick. So a side effect of antibiotics is getting sick.
Who knew?
Yes, who knew that modern miracle allopathic drugs were going to harm you eventually? Okay, so the thing we have to do is hydrogen supplementation until we can figure out how to get our digestive systems back in gear. And unfortunately, even the foods that we eat have pesticides, herbicides, and antibiotics in them. Like if you're eating meat, I love eating meat. Luckily, when I grew up on the cattle ranch, we always ate meat, but it was deer and elk and moose and rattlesnakes and rabbits and grouse and whatever was on the ranch kind of thing, because we didn't eat beef. One thing I didn't hardly have when I was growing up was beef, because we raised beef and you could sell beef, and so that was our money crop. We didn't eat it ourselves, you see. But I grew up out in the woods, and my dad would hand me a rifle and say, "Go get supper."
It's amazing.
Yes.
At some point, we have to talk about that in episode, maybe the second part of our interview. That sounds
Yes.
amazing. I wanted to learn more about your childhood. It sounds weird and amazing at the same time.
Yes, exactly. But it made me who I am today. It was a hard life, but we didn't know it was hard. It was just the life we were living. And when I got out into civilization and I experienced hot and cold running water and abundant electricity, like we didn't have electricity or anything out there. We didn't even have radio. There wasn't such a thing as TV or internet. We didn't even have radio. So when I could listen to a radio, I remember the pickup truck that I had. I didn't have a radio in it because there was no radio. I had an 8-track. So anyway, when I got out and I could watch TV. Man, I like Star Trek. Captain Kirk was my hero, kind of things like that. It's like, so I decided I would never be without hot and cold running water and electricity ever again. And that's one of the reasons, as an inventor, I became an alternative energy researcher, because then I learned lots of different ways that I can make energy. And of course, that introduced me to Tesla and all that joy there as well. So I went a lot that direction. So hydrogen, we now know what is Brown's gas, and we know that we need hydrogen. Why is Brown's gas better than just hydrogen? And that comes back to the electrically expanded water. It's water that has soaked up electrons till it's become a gaseous form of water, what's called a plasma. So you've got 4 states of matter. You've got your solid, which is ice, your liquid, which is water, your gas, which is water vapor or steam, and then you've got a plasma, which is the H2O molecule, which has a whole bunch of extra electrons on it. Well, it turns out those electrons are bioavailable. So when you inhale or drink the water, inhale the gas or drink the water, those electrons go directly out into your body and help energetically. Hydrogen itself is absolutely neutral. It doesn't do anything. It's like a brick. If you want to build a brick house, you have to have some energy and some intelligence to put those bricks, move them over, and build the brick walls to build your brick house. Well, that's your body needs. It has the intelligence, but it needs the energy. And usually people who are sick have 2 things happen. They've used up their energy reserves, and their energy generation systems have become compromised, so they get less energy. So in addition to providing the hydrogen, you're also providing energy for the body to get a jump start on a healing process. And that's why the Brown's gas, in my opinion, is better than the straight hydrogen, and why I go with that instead.
So in simple terms, it's adding the energy component of the equation for the people to get better. So if you get just hydrogen, you have to find the energy from another source. All right.
Correct.
Correct. All right. Wow. And I'm wondering now, have you searched about the history of the brown gas in ancient times? So did we have that in the past, in the very distant past, or in the past, or something similar? And if not, how were people living without it? So sometimes I'm wondering, we have so many technologies, and it sometimes seems that people are, as if we try to compensate for our lack of evolution, maybe, or we are as if we try to find, for example, you said you didn't have electricity and warm water growing up, and I kind of, I don't know exactly how it is, but as I was growing up myself, we weren't exactly wealthy or rich, lower middle class. So sometimes, yeah, we didn't have many luxuries. And my mother and my father, just like you, they were up in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. So there was no warm water to be had, or TV, or radio. So not even a joke. And so they ate the first banana, they were telling me, like 25 years old, 22. Which now it's a joke, of course, if you are in the Western society. But have you seen anything, any example, first of all, of brown gas in the past?
I ran across some documentation. I don't have it right available, and I'd like to find it again so I could have it in my history archives, that hydrogen for health has actually been known for at least a couple hundred years. Like even before or in the range of Michael Faraday, they knew about hydrogen. They had a different name for it at that time. And some people had experimented with using hydrogen for health, but it seems to have just disappeared completely for at least 150 years. And it wasn't until relatively recently that it was rediscovered. And one of the big proponents for that is Tyler LeBaron, who is a doctor who has developed a website called molecularhydrogeninstitute.com. And if you go there, you'll see a lot of the articles and scientific studies for hydrogen. He consulted with me back in 2007 as a medical student, and let me know that he was interested in hydrogen for health and what I was doing back then, because at that point I was doing the Brown's gas bubbled water for health. I wasn't doing the inhalation yet. And then he went off to Japan, I think it was, to work with a doctor who was also doing hydrogen for health as an internship. And then he came back to North America as an actual doctor, very well versed in hydrogen for health. And he's done a lot of good education out there, hydrogen for health. So I've also seen, so I don't remember where this was. I think it was in Europe somewhere that I saw that information of a couple hundred years ago for the hydrogen for health kind of thing, reference. But I also saw research done for Egyptian times where the Egyptians had batteries. And all you need is DC current and run it with electrodes to make hydrogen. And the Egyptians were obsessed with long life and health and rebirth and these kind of things. And so I'm thinking that they must have had, because there's no way they could do some of the things that they were doing, based on my opinion and research, without having Brown's gas. They just simply could not have had the health benefits and life extension that they did, which, by the way, there's now been several studies using rodents, because humans haven't lived long enough doing this yet, where they were inhaling a 2% hydrogen mixture in a terrarium type thing. And the least that they got was a 30% life extension. 30%. Okay. Our lifetime, we're in about, I think it's like life expectancy in about 87 or something like that for us humans. Can you imagine what another 30% is? Now, this is healthful life extension. This isn't laying in a bed, wasting away, or in a wheelchair or something like that. We're talking energetic life, people going out and doing stuff and being healthy and happy. We spend the first 20 years, at least I did, of my life just kind of growing up and being able to put on my clothes properly and interact in society. And then you spend the next 20 years kind of learning what you're going to do with your life. And then you spend the next 20 years, now you're about 60 years old, actually doing something, and then you retire. So you've only got like 20 years of actual useful life in there. And can you imagine what would happen if there was another 20 or 30 years of actual useful life? You wouldn't have to retire. You could just be enjoying life. What would happen if everybody had that ability? It would be incredible. The kind of things that people could do. Like I see my grandfather and a lot of elderly people who have learned things in their life, who have this knowledge and skills that they've learned, and it's just gone. And the world is the worse for it, because if people could have access to this knowledge base and these skills for a longer period of time, you were talking about the Gothic architecture that they used to build in these huge cathedrals, which could take hundreds of years to build. And you think, where is that craftsmanship today? It's an almost lost art. There are so many things that have gotten lost because our lifespans are very ephemeral, very short. So this thing of life extension is very important. And I think there has been stuff in the past. It's been forgotten. We're now recalling it and bringing it back to the planet based on, I think, it's time. It's like a lot of these things come in there in the time that it's supposed to come. And now this is the time for this technology. So that's the past and life extension. Just to talk about an inventor's perspective of time. Yeah, I say when it's time to railroad, you railroad. So just imagine back in the day, they used to mine with pickaxes and shovels and carry the ore and out of the mine site with buckets. And then they got the idea, well, we'll put wheels on these buckets. And then they put 2 wheels and then 4 wheels. They had a cart. But it's still stumbling over the rocks and stuff that's on the ground and the uneven terrain. So then they put rails. So they put the cart with the wheels on rails, and then they could push the stuff out a lot easier. And about that time, the mines were getting deep enough that they had water problems. So they started pumping the water out of the mines with pumps. And they'd have a couple people working the pump levers and pumping them out by hand. And then somebody got the idea of putting steam on the pump. So you're running steam pumps to get the water out. And then somebody else got the idea of putting that steam engine on the cart so you could actually have the cart self-propel itself out of the mine. And then they thought, well, we've got this cart full of ore. Why don't we just extend the rails to the next town? And then they have the railway systems develop. So each technology develops on the previous technology. So I think at this point, we've reached a point where this Brown's gas, it's time to railroad. It's the time for the technology to get out there. And if we do it in a way that bypasses the allopathic greediness systems, because they actually did a study, I have a study where they proved that Health is not profitable. They actually made a study on that. Health is not profitable. Sickness is profitable. So the allopathic system deliberately makes drugs that mitigate symptoms instead of healing the disease. So the people are still sick, but they feel well, but they have to keep coming back for the drugs, you see? So we have to start making people actually healthy, getting rid of the symptoms by making their bodies healthy. And that's kind of the way that I'm thinking of going.
Amazing. Yeah, and I believe you, by the way, about the Egyptians. I've read this same books like you probably. I'm very fascinated about ancient history, as you can probably guess by now. And yeah, they had technologies that probably we don't have or we reinvent right now. And I'm very glad that you are part of the solution. And I really want to see it more common. I really want to see people having their hands on technologies like these. And like I said in the beginning of our interview, my plan here with this platform is to use our creativity as humans and our kindness and our intelligence to create a healthy world, but in the sense of bringing back healthcare in our own hands, in our own homes, and decentralize, like you said, educate people, give them more power to heal themselves. If you go now, for example, and read about the Middle Ages, if that was even a time, but if you go and read about some professions, they are now extinct. So I want to see the allopathic system go extinct, to be honest, because I want to see people like the old times. You said about the old people having knowledge and getting lost because they die and they don't have the time to invest more, 10 years more, 20 years more. And I've seen the same with my grandfather now, for example. He's 95 and he's up in the mountains with his wife. She's 90, my grandmother, and they have so much knowledge in their minds, so much knowledge, herbs, stonemasonry, building houses. My grandfather is a stonemason of the old types. So now it's going extinct here in Greece. It's something that the Albanians continue. So the Albanians came to Greece, and because they wanted to get some work, they get into building and they took the wisdom. But even then, they don't share the wisdom outside of their families, of the community. So Greeks are now losing, in a sense, that wisdom. And now I'm understanding the importance of masonry. And I love to go to my grandfather and ask him things, but he's too old now to give me the wisdom. So I was stupid when he was energetic enough. And now I'm not stupid, but he's not energetic. It's the same paradox of life. And yeah, I hope that your machines make us a little bit more energetic at least. And if possible, a little bit younger for more time, George. So having said that, you have something for my listeners. There's an offer there and a code also, so they can buy your machine with a discount. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I set the code as WOLF20, WOLF20, all one word. The case doesn't matter. And if you go to my website, the best one to go to is the Eagle-research, so Eagle like the bird, EAGLE -research.life website. And then you can review a lot of things about Brown's gas there. But if you go to buy the machine, it'll take you to my sales page. And in the coupon place, there's two places you can put the coupon. Either one works. As you check out WOLF20, it will give you a 20% discount, which is almost $500 off. The machine is about $2,500, $24.99. And it'll give you that almost $500 off the price of the machine. Because I want your listeners to take advantage of this. I really want to help as many people as possible.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. So people, listen up. This is something, a beautiful discount from George. You put in the work here and you analyze to everybody, to me, to the listeners, about the benefits of your machine. And I know that there will be skeptics out there, but I know also that sometimes we have to take a leap of faith. And I'm talking from personal opinion here. I will get my hands on your product, on your machine as fast as possible, because I personally have my mother struggles with severe health problems over the past 5 years. And, to be honest, I don't want her to go to see her go. So, of course, and I'm going to get my hands on your machine. I'm going to read more about it, but you seem like an honest person to me, an honest man. You seem to do the work. You glow. I can feel that you are honest. I can feel that you are enthusiastic about this. I can feel that you have no lies inside you. So I urge everybody to take seriously this offer that was very kind of you, George, to give us. And having said all that, tell us again where people can find you, and if they want to contact you, how can they do it, George?
Okay. First, I will add, because you reminded me, and I just take it as a given. When you go to the sales page, you're going to see two things that are very important. The first one is that there's a 1-year satisfaction guarantee. So you can try the machine for a year, and if you don't like it, you don't like the paint color, it doesn't matter why you don't like it. If you're not satisfied for any reason, just ask me for the return merchant authorization information, and I send that to you, and you will, when I get the machine back, you will get 100% of your purchase price refunded. So people can try it for a year, and the only thing they risk is the postage or the shipping cost. That's it. So that I did that, and I do that because I can't promise any particular gains or anything. People have to try it, and we actually have less than a 1% return rate, and most of that is from people that just didn't want to do the maintenance and send it back. But again, it doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter why. And the second thing is I have a lifetime warranty, meaning that for the purchaser, as long as the purchaser owns the machine, if anything goes wrong that is a manufacturer error or a defect, I will fix that machine. I pay for the shipping, I pay for the labor, I pay for the costs. There's no cost for the purchaser to fix those machines. I want these machines out there and people to be using them and healthy as much as possible. So I wanted to make sure that those two items were mentioned. And of course, you'll see more on the sales page. Like currently, I have an 8-week back order queue. Now, if somebody's watching this episode later, that may be mitigated. But right at the moment, if you order, it's 2 months before I can ship the machine because people are ordering as fast as I'm making them. I've maintained that 8-week queue. I haven't lost ground. I'm actually gaining a little ground at this point. I think it's actually about 6 weeks, but I tell people 8 weeks. So we're making machines now faster than people are buying them, but as we make them and ship them out, more people are buying them. So I call it chasing the queue. We're just kind of chasing the queue at the moment. Okay, getting the machine. Again, if you go to the eagle-research.life website, so eagle like the bird, E-A-G-L-E, that's a high-flying bird, and then the hyphen mark, not an underscore, but a hyphen mark, and then research, R-E-S-E-A-R-C-H.life. You can do it. You can order from the .com website as well, but the .com website has all of my various projects, and it's hard to find just the AquaCure in there. So we made a little side website, the .life website, just for the AquaCure and the Brown's Gas for health kind of situation. And feel free to explore when you're over there and buy any of the other products as well. I love helping people in all the various things, especially like we were saying, the fuel prices have gone insane. So I have the books where people can increase the fuel mileage, and we do it properly. We do it in such a way that the engines are longer life. In other words, it's less strain on the engine, and you actually get more power as well. So you increase performance, you increase the engine life, and you decrease pollution and fuel consumption all at the same time, using the proper technologies which have been suppressed over these 100 and some odd years. So I just want to help as many people as possible, and that's how to get in touch with me.
All right, George. Thank you for your service for humanity. You seem to speak truth, and again, and yes, the fuels are going a little bit higher this time around, but I think that this is a perfect opportunity to look around as people and see people like you and machines like yours, and really, for the first time in our lives, probably take a serious look at alternative solutions and maybe independence as much as possible with our energy consumption. Crisis, for me, a crisis is always a great opportunity, to be honest. I never see crisis as painful, because like you growing up without warm water, it's a motivator. So the pain's a motivator. So I'm really glad that you do all that thing, and I'm really glad that you came by, George, and I hope that we can have a part 2 at some point.
In the near future.
Yes, in the future, after you get a lot of stuff done, maybe after the course is published, maybe in the summer.
Good thinking.
Yep. And talk a little bit about that, how that goes, and what's your impression, the first impressions. And yeah, thank you for coming on, George. Please stay after the recording for a minute. And for anybody else listening, thanks for watching. Thanks for paying your attention to us, because attention is currency in my mind. And I appreciate you if you stayed that long and listened to us. And I hope that you share this interview with people that are in dire need of this machine. We can always save a life, even if we don't know that we do. Sometimes the universe works in very peculiar ways, and if you share something in Facebook, maybe somebody sends this to their loved ones and they are saved. They literally don't die because of you sharing this. So please do share, do comment your opinion down below in the comments section. It's very important. It's not trivial. So having said that, see you in the next episode of the Hellenic Goof podcast, and ciao, George. Ciao, everybody.